everyone. So I would like to introduce our speakers for today. It's Georgina Jardim. She's an author of Recovering the Female Voice in Islamic Scripture. Originally from South Africa, worked on the role of women in the Christian church there. After that, came to the UK and started studying and lecturing in women and religion, the topic of women and religion. Also took courses on Islam. At the moment, lecturer in the University of Gloucestershire.
Thank you very much, Shabnam and Elisa. I hope you can all hear me. I sometimes get complaints that I don't know, my tone of voice is too soft or something. So just put a hand up if you can't hear me. I thought I'd just start off our conversation this morning by asking whether women have to speak up to be heard. Exactly the problem that I was just talking about. Is it necessary for us to speak up to be heard, or are there perhaps other more creative ways that we can engage? So yes, we do need to hear women's voices. I think that is something, of course, that we're all agreed on. But what do we mean when we say that? What do we mean when we say we need to hear women's voices? And how can women indeed engage with society? So I hope I can give us a few creative ways to think about engagement with society, with wider society, and of course with our closer families. As I'm speaking on the topic of identity this morning in the United Kingdom, I am speaking from the perspective of someone who wasn't born here, although I've been living here for more than a decade now. So questions of identity are integral to me, but I don't think it is just for people who have been born outside of the United Kingdom. I think in the world that we live in, even people who live within their countries are experiencing changes that make them question their identity. So it's a human experience. To wonder what your identity is a human experience in the world that we live in. And central to the matter of identity, of course, is who am I? And when we are young, it's not such a big issue because we are our parents' daughters, we are the names that we are called, and we are from the places that we are born in. But then as we grow older, people want to know, what do you want to become? And who are you? And then, of course, when you're not in the country of your birth, you have to try and explain yourself by the stories that people hear of your country. So we find ourselves sometimes caught between the pain of belonging and the separation from our family and from our home country, and the gratefulness that we perhaps feel for being able to have a second chance. And so because we stand with our feet in two worlds, our personal problems are never just personal. Our thinking constantly moves between how our mothers would have solved the problem and how the society I'm now in looks at my problems. And we can often get stuck in this almost like a spinning wheel between who am I and how am I supposed to deal with issues. And we sometimes envy people who we think have only one voice to listen to. But we definitely have an imagination that has been formed by different colors and different sounds and different places. So what is our voice then? And can we share ourselves to perhaps even inspire others and to bring hope to others? What is my voice to my family, to my friend, or the people where I shop and the neighbors in my street? So in order to help us think of some creative ways, I've taken 3 examples of women who have spoken up. And they've spoken up in 3 different ways. The one is by literally using her voice, and the other one is by her cooking, and the other one is to verify the English. You can see the use of Ali translation here makes a little bit of a adaptation, but the first verse of this surah says, Allah has indeed heard her who disputes with you about her husband, and she protests to God, or she complains to God. God hears both sides among you. Indeed, God is all-hearing and all-seeing. Now, who is this woman? And what did she debate about? Who did she debate with? If we turn to Hadith, because the Quran doesn't explain anything else, it literally just says that God has heard this woman. So who is this woman? According to the Hadith, her name is Qawla, and the issue that she had brought to the Prophet was that her husband had said a word to her which in those times meant that he was separating from her. It wasn't divorce. It was just that he was separating from her. He would have no more relations with her. And this left her in a terrible situation because she could not become an independent person again. She couldn't marry again. She was bound to this man, whereas of course he could go and marry another woman. So she brought this issue to the Prophet, and the Prophet did not immediately give her any answer to it. She then complains to Allah about it, and the Hadith says, Ibn Sa'd's Hadith says that the Prophet Muhammad received a revelation that said, Allah has heard this woman, and he then says this practice of men using this separation formula is wrong, and he institutes in the next verses up to verse 7 the ways that this practice should be punished and ultimately abolished, so that this practice must be done away with because it is unjust. And very importantly, the Quran explains that what is so wrong about this formula that the man uses is it's the word zihar. And when he says to the woman, you are zihar to me, it means that you are to me as my mother's back. And what the Quran says is, you cannot equate your wife to your mother. A mother is someone who has given birth to you. A wife is someone you are related to by mutual touching. You shouldn't confuse the two ideas. Right. So we see here in the Quran then that we have a woman who literally spoke up. She used her voice, she used her knowledge, she used her spiritual and her religious knowledge to confront an issue in her society. And so she achieved justice for all. And in the Holy Book, she is declared right by the highest authority. She is declared right by God. And in this way then, through speaking up, she changed her whole society. The second example that I want to tell you about is a Muslim woman who enjoys good food. And she is sharing it with others. Now here I'm taking the website at face value. We live in a very cynical world where we never know who we're really dealing with. But I'm taking this website at face value because the author of the website doesn't make her identity clear. She doesn't name herself. But even so, the point is, whoever she is blessing others with good food. And I can definitely vouch for her recipe of these jammy oat bars. If you want to bake them, apricot jam is really good on them. And the website is This Muslim Girl Bakes if you want to go and look at her recipes. Alright, so we see here then, she quotes from the Quran as well. She says, "O you who believe, eat the good things which we have provided you, and give thanks to Allah if you worship only Him," from Surah 2. So she combines the things she loves to bring joy to herself and to others. Her skill is making good food, and she has found a way to express her talent on the internet. She also keeps a blog where she talks about different topics. And of course, the point is not that we should all get involved on the internet. Some of us are more comfortable with technology than others, but we can find other ways to share our talents. Maybe there's a local community that provides meals and who needs someone to help in the kitchen. Or maybe there's a school teacher who needs someone to help with the activities with children. And these are all ways that we can get involved with our local community. by speaking or not so much speaking, perhaps more through the activities that we do. And the third example, is, sorry, I'm just going to go back and explain what this is about. It is from an Afghan women's writing project between American women and Afghan women. And these were experienced authors, screenwriters and reporters and authors who made themselves available to help women in Afghanistan to write. So they're either online or in Afghanistan itself, they helped women to write by thinking through topics. So they would have workshops very much like the ones that you've arranged, and they would talk together about topics, and then they would try and write about it. So first they would explore it together. The first topic that they explored together was the idea of love and forgiveness. So they would talk about it together and think it through for themselves, and then they would write their own thoughts on what they thought about love and forgiveness. And some of them wrote poems, some of them wrote essays, some of them wrote short stories, fictional short stories, but expressing themselves through writing. And then the women who were more experienced with writing helped them to edit it, and if they wanted to publish it online, they created a website to publish these works online as well. And this project started in 2009, and it now has 175 women in Afghanistan who are participating in the project and publishing regularly online through their website. And they've also opened an internet cafe in Kabul, an unnamed internet cafe, so that women can go and work there without people necessarily noticing that they're there. So the women don't always want their full names to be known, so we only know who wrote the poem by the first name. And the first poem is by a woman called Yalda, and she just asks, what would happen if love took over my country? Would we become a happy and united people where the world hears only happy news about us all the time on all the channels? And I think this is a really poignant poem by Yalda, but also a very subtle and clear thinking that she shows. She doesn't just talk about wanting peace in her own country, but in a careful way she asks how the rest of the world looks at her country. And she asks, do the pictures and the sounds that we see on the BBC News or on CNN or Al Jazeera, do they really present the full picture of her country? And so we see that she could bring other people to think a little bit more deeply through her writing, that you could argue now has a worldwide audience on the internet. And the last example that I want to leave you with is another poem by a woman called Nasima, and her poem is called Hurry. And the reason why I would like to leave you with this poem is because she shows us how important it is for us all to try something, whether in a big way or in a small way. And Nasima's poem says, we have such a short time to do this good work, to forgive each other's small mistakes, to pay attention to positive points. We must practice being good people and destroy the lens of pessimism in our eyes and see the facts of life. Why are we born to this world, and what are our plans for this life? Are they the destruction or betterment of our world? I try to smile. I don't have money, power, or authority, but I have a mouth with lips for smiling. I have language for speaking. I can use them for good, to carry messages of peace and love and forgiveness. I can smile to grow the root of the friendship tree. We have such a short time to do good work. Let's hurry. And I